This is English Uncut, and today we are tackling what is maybe the single most terrifying 5 seconds in the English language. Tell me honestly, do you ever freeze up when someone asks, tell me about yourself? You know, that simple request can just make your mind go completely blank, and it causes you to fumble your words even when you know exactly what you want to say. Well, we're going to fix that today. We're giving you the ultimate blueprint to introduce yourself clearly, confidently, and with the kind of impact that opens doors. But before we jump into the deep dive, please just take a moment right now. Like this deep dive, subscribe to the English Uncut channel, and share this valuable lesson with your family and friends. When you subscribe, you ensure that you do not miss any of our comprehensive guides. They're all designed to make your English learning journey successful.
And today, we are focusing entirely on mastering the self-introduction. We have taken a deep dive into the best practices across, well, multiple sources, from business etiquette guides to language acquisition studies. And we did that to give you a structure that works in pretty much any setting. We are going to break down the 9 essential components that form a perfect, polished introduction.
And guiding us through this process is an expert English instructor who's here with me today. She's going to help us unpack the why behind the phrasing, making sure you not only know what to say,
but why it works. I am excited to be here. This is, I think, perhaps the most practical skill we can teach, because a great introduction, it's the key. It unlocks all future conversations.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation.
Yeah.
Why is a well-crafted self-introduction so essential? I mean, it seems so basic, right? But it's high-stakes communication.
It is entirely high stakes, yeah. It all comes down to the concept of first impressions. There's a saying, and it holds true across cultures and languages.
You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
That's the one. When you step into a room, whether it's virtual or physical, your self-introduction is your debut. It's that moment the listener decides, consciously or subconsciously, how they're going to categorize you.
And that initial delivery, it signals so much. It tells the listener if you're confident, if you're friendly.
They're prepared.
Exactly. Whether you're easy to talk to, and if you seem nervous, or if you stumble over simple details like your name or your job.
Yeah.
That impression sticks.
It really does.
It sets up this immediate barrier that you then have to spend the rest of the conversation trying to overcome.
Absolutely. And for language learners, there is just an immense psychological benefit to being prepared. We know that speaking English, especially in a new or stressful environment, it can cause anxiety.
Oh, for sure.
And that anxiety leads to stumbling. But if you have prepared and rehearsed a solid, structured introduction, you actively reduce that nervousness.
It's like a critical cognitive shortcut. When we talk about preparation, we often use the analogy that it's like having a GPS when you are driving in a new city.
It is the perfect comparison. It really is. Imagine driving without a map or a GPS. You're not focused on the traffic around you. Right. You are focused internally. You're guessing your next turn. You're worrying about making a wrong move, asking yourself, did I just miss the exit?
All that internal worry just eats up your mental energy.
It does. And in a conversation, that mental energy is crucial for listening.
Right.
Exactly. If your brain is constantly scrambling to find the right English words for your own introduction, you have zero mental space left to properly listen to and process the other person's introduction.
Or their follow-up questions. Yeah.
A rehearsed introduction is your conversational GPS. It guarantees you know the route, sentence by sentence. You can deliver it automatically. And that frees up your cognitive energy to focus entirely on the other person.
So you can actually listen.
To listen actively, understand their subtle cues, and formulate a thoughtful, fluid response.
And that ability to be fully present in the moment is just invaluable. So beyond just reducing stumbles and boosting confidence in the moment, a strong introduction also achieves something more long-lasting. It helps you leave your mark.
Precisely. We want you, our listeners, to be memorable. People are so much more likely to remember someone who speaks clearly, who presents their information logically.
And who seems self-assured.
Yes. You are essentially leaving your mark on the conversation. You're distinguishing yourself from others who might be unprepared or, sound hesitant.
And leaving that mark, it opens doors. This skill goes far beyond just a casual social interaction.
It absolutely does. I mean, nailing the self-introduction is foundational to professional and academic success. Think about it. Whether you're meeting new classmates who might become future study partners,
or giving an elevator pitch in a competitive job interview.
Right. Or mingling at a high-stakes networking event. The way you introduce yourself determines whether people follow up with you. It determines if they see you as competent, as reliable, and as someone they want to connect with professionally.
So if we just summarize the core benefits for you, the learner, it's this. A good introduction is crucial because, one, it helps you make a positive professional first impression.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it actively reduces anxiety by giving you a structure.
Right. It boosts your confidence immediately.
And most importantly, it makes you memorable.
Mm.
And when you are memorable, people want to engage with you, they want to listen to you, and they want to connect with you again.
So with that foundation laid, I think we're ready to move on to the practical application.
Okay, now we transition from the why to the how.
Mm.
Before we break down the 9 specific components, we need a reference text, a model. So I'm going to present a complete self-introduction scenario. This example incorporates all 9 of those essential elements we're about to analyze, and it shows you what a polished introduction sounds like in action. This scenario is going to be the source text for the rest of our deep dive. So listen carefully to the structure and the flow, and just notice how much necessary information is conveyed in, under 20 seconds? Here it is. Sample scenario. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. My name's the speaker name. I am in my mid-30s. I was born in London but raised in Toronto. However, I am now based in Tokyo. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing, and I work as a deputy manager at XYZ Corporation. I've worked in sales for 10 years. I am one of 4 siblings, and I am a big fan of hiking. That felt cohesive. It felt complete.
It really did.
It covered background, current status, and even some personal interests. So now, let's go back through that sample sentence by sentence and analyze the practical application of each of the 9 key components for you, the English learner.
And we're going to focus on the specific words and the linguistic reason they were chosen. Okay, this is the core of our deep dive. We are going to analyze each phrase used in that scenario. We will explore the variations available to you and explain the linguistic effect of each choice.
Because understanding this nuance is what separates a simple speaker from a truly effective communicator. #A. The greeting, setting the tone. All right, our scenario began with, "Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here." That initial greeting, component A, it sets the entire emotional and social tone. So let's analyze the use of formal greetings first.
In formal usage, your goal is to be polite, structured, and respectful of the time of day. So we use phrases like, hello, good morning, good afternoon, or just like in the scenario, good evening. These are, they're pretty much non-negotiable in structured environments. Think formal business meetings, conferences, or even academic settings where you're addressing a group.
And the critical choice here is matching the formality of the setting. We call that the register. If the stakes are high, the language must be formal, using good morning signals that you respect the setting and the time of the other person.
Precisely. Now, we have to stress a critical detail that, well, even native speakers sometimes mix this up, but learners absolutely need to master it.
The difference between good evening and good night.
Yes, that's a constant point of confusion.
So could you explain that distinction again for us really clearly?
Of course. The word night implies finality, or sleep. Good night is exclusively reserved for saying goodbye when you are leaving a place late in the day or when someone is going to bed. You would never, ever walk into a room to greet people and say, good night.
Never.
You only use good evening to initiate the conversation, as we did in our scenario. So if you are meeting someone at 8:00 p.m., you greet them with good evening. When you leave at 9:00 p.m., you say good night.
That distinction is just fundamental to polite English conversation. Okay, now let's switch gears to informal usage. If you are joining a casual team lunch or meeting up with friends, that formal language can sound a little rigid, maybe even awkward.
It can.
So we need to convey a relaxed and friendly vibe.
For informal settings, you use casual phrases that signal openness. Things like, hey, or hi. And we often couple these with the phrase of welcome, like the source suggested, hey, it is great to meet you.
That use of hi or hey immediately lowers the social distance between you and the listener.
Right. It makes the interaction feel more collaborative and warm.
So the goal of the greeting is really just to make the other person comfortable and to establish the correct social register. A small mismatch like using what's up with a senior executive or using good afternoon with a close peer at a barbecue can create this unnecessary social awkwardness before you even share your name.
The greeting is simple, but it is the first word you utter. It sets the emotional temperature. So choose wisely based on your audience. #B, stating your name. Clarity across contexts.
Okay, so if the greeting sets the emotional temperature, how do we make sure that the next essential piece of information, our name, lands clearly no matter the situation? We use the slightly formal, my name is host speaker name in our scenario.
For a casual setting or when you are talking to a small group of peers, simplicity and warmth are really paramount. The simplest usage is always best. I am name. For example, hi, I am Jennifer. Nice to meet you. It is friendly, it's direct, and it avoids formality.
It prioritizes connection over structure. But if the setting is slightly more formal, maybe you're meeting a potential client, a professor, or introducing yourself in a classroom setting, the phrasing needs a little more weight.
That is when my name is name, or the contracted form my name's name, is used. Just like we heard in the scenario, this phrasing adds a small degree of professionalism and control. Using the full my name is Daniel signals that you're taking the introduction seriously and respecting the environment.
This brings up a really good point about clarity. For learners who might have names that are unique or maybe difficult for a native English speaker to pronounce, the introduction needs to prioritize auditory clarity.
Absolutely. If you have a difficult name, slow down even more. Pause slightly after your greeting. Sometimes, especially in a professional setting where people will need to write or remember your name for emails later, you should be ready to offer a quick spelling if they look confused.
So something like,
my name is Kai, that is K-A-I. Anticipating that confusion helps you manage the interaction so much more smoothly.
okay, what about those specific situations, like speaking to a very large audience, a presentation, or addressing a crowd? How does the language shift then?
Right. When you are taking the stage or addressing a large audience, you often adopt a more performative phrasing. This is name. This structure is used to project authority and make it immediately clear to the entire group, often including people far away, who is speaking.
So an example would be,
Good evening, everyone. This is Jennifer, and I will be guiding you through today's session.
and finally, there's the practical matter of introducing yourself over the phone. Since the visual element is gone, absolute clarity is mandatory.
Over the phone, you must confirm your identity verbally using the participle speaking to eliminate any doubt. The essential phrase is, hi, this is name speaking.
So if I'm calling a business,
You might say, hello, this is Daniel speaking. How can I assist you today? Notice how that phrase speaking clarifies that you are the person who initiated the dialogue. It confirms the voice on the line.
so the overall lesson for component B is that you have to tailor your name introduction to the medium in the audience.
Yes. Are you prioritizing warmth, formality, stage presence, or simple verification on a phone call? Choosing the right structure is key. Hashtag C, stating your age, directness versus flexibility. The third component is stating your age. Now, this one is highly optional and often culturally sensitive,
Right.
but if you choose to share it, the flexibility in phrasing is really important.
Let's start with the direct approach. If you are comfortable sharing the exact number, the phrasing is extremely straightforward.
You just say, I am 35 years old, or you can even shorten it to, I am 35. This is direct, it's clear, and it's perfectly acceptable in most casual or even slightly formal settings, depending on the professional culture. It's concise and efficient.
But for many people, especially in more formal environments or if they just prefer to keep the number private, there is the general approach, and that's the phrasing we used in our scenario. I am in my mid-30s.
This general phrasing is a very useful technique. It allows you to provide context, an idea of your life stage, without sharing the exact number. We use 3 basic ranges: early, mid, and late.
Okay, let's nail down those ranges for the learner. If I say I am in my early 30s, what numbers does that imply?
Early usually implies 30, 31, or 32.
Okay.
Mid-range, which we heard in the scenario, mid-30s, typically covers 33, 34, 35, or maybe 36.
And late.
And if you are in your late 30s, that would be 37, 38, or 39. This technique gives the listener a useful bracket without demanding precision.
That flexibility is important because it respects the speaker's personal comfort level. It's about giving a general context while retaining a degree of privacy.
Which is often preferred in formal American and British English settings, unless age is specifically relevant to the role you're discussing.
And remember, if the exact number is not necessary for the introduction, you are absolutely free to omit this component entirely.
But knowing how to generalize allows you to control the level of detail you share based on the situation. Hashtag delocation, sharing your journey and roots.
Okay, location, component D. This is where your self-introduction starts to tell a more complex story. It's not just about where you are now, but about sharing your journey and your roots, which adds real character. Our scenario was complex. I was born in London, but raised in Toronto. However, I am now based in Tokyo. We have a lot to unpack there.
We do. But let's start with the simplest version. If you just have one location, I am from New York. It uses the simple present tense and the preposition from. It's quick, clear, and gives the basic information immediately.
But as many of our listeners are engaging internationally, focusing only on the city might not be enough.
That's a great point.
It's often more helpful to clarify your nationality first.
In that situation, you would lead with your country. I am American, or I am Italian. This is particularly useful in multinational settings where people might not recognize the specific city or region you mentioned.
Now, what if you want to add a more personal touch? Focusing on the idea that your hometown deeply influences your identity. There's a slightly softer phrasing for that, isn't there?
Yes, you can say, I come from a small town in Italy. The verb phrase come from adds this sense of a personal journey. It implies your background shaped who you are.
It feels less like a simple statistic.
Right. More like the beginning of a story.
And that storytelling aspect is strong. Similarly, if you want to highlight a strong, lifelong connection to your roots, what phrasing is most emphatic?
You specifically use the structure born and raised. So you say, I was born and raised in Chicago. The use of the past tense emphasizes that the process of growing up there is a completed, foundational part of your identity.
Okay, now let's tackle the complexity of the scenario, which handles dual locations due to moving early in life. I was born in London, but raised in Toronto. What's the linguistic power of that structure?
That structure, using the contrasting conjunction but, clearly shows two distinct phases of your formative life experience. Born in is the place of birth. Raised in is the place where you spent your developmental years. It's a very efficient way to explain a split identity without using multiple sentences.
And the scenario then added the current location. However, I am now based in Tokyo. This introduces the idea of a professional or maybe temporary current residency.
That is the power of the word based. Based in Tokyo implies that Tokyo is where your current professional or main operations are located. It clearly shows where your career or current life phase has taken you, in contrast to where you came from. It's much more common in business English than just saying, I live in Tokyo, which sounds a bit more permanent and personal.
Okay, and finally, we need structures for adding a time frame. This helps communicate duration, and it suggests whether your stay is permanent or maybe temporary. This requires using the present perfect continuous tense.
Exactly. If you want to show how long you have been somewhere and that you're still there now, you must use the present perfect continuous. I have been living in New York for the past 5 years. We use have been living because the action living started in the past, 5 years ago, and continues right up to the present moment. This clearly communicates duration.
And if the move was more recent, indicating duration, but not necessarily permanence.
You could use the present perfect simple with the verb spent. I have spent the last 2 years in Berlin. This lets people know you're settled there for now, but it emphasizes the time that has elapsed since the change occurred. The depth you add here can really transition the conversation from a simple fact to a discussion about travel or culture shock or professional goals. ###E, qualifications and education. Academic background. All right, moving on to component E, qualifications and education. This is crucial for establishing credibility, especially in formal and professional introductions. Our scenario stated, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing.
For a casual introduction, like at a dinner party, we want to keep it short and clear.
In casual settings, you can simplify the credential. Just say, I'm a marketing graduate. This is quick and efficient. It tells people your general field of study without requiring them to process the specific level of the degree.
But if you are in a formal setting, like a job interview or a conference, you should aim for the specific formal credential, just like we did in the scenario. Why is Bachelor of Arts linguistically more impactful than just graduate?
It's all about establishing authority and precision. Saying, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing provides a formal credential that's recognized globally. It specifies the level of the degree, lending more weight and formality than the simple word graduate, which can sometimes be a little too vague in a high-stakes professional environment.
The precision establishes academic authority.
It does.
What if the listener is still actively learning or developing skills rather than having already completed a degree? How do we use the appropriate tense to convey that ongoing development?
This is a perfect use case for the phrase, currently taking a course. For example, I'm currently taking a course in digital marketing. The use of the present continuous tense, am taking, immediately signals that this is an active, ongoing effort. It shows initiative and a commitment to growth.
Which employers and colleagues really value.
They do.
And people appreciate hearing about continuous self-improvement. It makes you seem proactive. You are not just relying on old qualifications, you're constantly adapting.
Exactly. So when you're choosing your phrasing here, just ask yourself, is the context casual, requiring a simple summary? Or is it professional, requiring maximum authority and precision? That choice determines whether you use I am a graduate or I have a Bachelor of Arts. Hashtag F professional information, job, company, and field.
Component F covers professional information, your job, your company, and your field. In career contexts, this is often the most critical part of the introduction. Our scenario stated, I work as a deputy manager at XYZ Corporation. That single sentence used multiple prepositions to define the role.
This section can be a bit of a minefield for English learners because of the specific prepositions used. If you need to give a detailed introduction for a formal setting, you often include the company, the department, and your position.
Okay, so let's break down the prepositions. If I want to include my company and my department, what do I use?
You use at for the company and in for the department. For example, I work at XYZ Corporation in the marketing department.
So at for the place, in for the division.
Exactly. At 8 specifies the physical or corporate location, and in specifies the field or division.
Now, if the company name itself is well known, you might want to focus primarily on that.
Then you might use the preposition for, especially if you feel a strong sense of organizational loyalty. I work for XYZ Corporation. This works best when the company is recognizable, and you don't need to specify your department immediately.
Alternatively, if you want to highlight your specific title, you focus on your position. The scenario, use the structure. I work as a deputy manager.
Yes, using I work as a title is crucial. The preposition as defines your specific function or role. It clarifies your standing within the organization. So saying, I am a project manager at XYZ Corporation gives people a clear idea of both your job title and your workplace.
Sometimes, though, especially in casual or social settings, you may want to keep things broad and just talk about the field you work in, keeping the professional details more general.
That is when you revert to the preposition in. You'd say, I work in sales or I work in finance. This keeps the information general, which is perfect if you were trying to avoid getting bogged down in specifics. It's a great way to signal, I'm happy to talk about my field, but I don't want to discuss my company's quarterly earnings right now.
Right. So the key application here is control. You decide whether to keep it general, I work in tech, or dive deeper. I work as a senior analyst in the data science division at TechCorp.
It's all based on what the situation demands and how much you want to reveal. Hashtag G sharing experience, highlighting time and expertise. Okay, now that we have covered the job itself, let's look at component G, sharing experience. This highlights your expertise and the time you've spent in your field. Our scenario said, I have worked in sales for 10 years.
The simplest way to emphasize your expertise is to focus directly on the years of experience you possess.
You say, I have 10 years of sales experience. This uses the noun form, experience, making the sentence precise, simple, and it immediately communicates your depth of knowledge in that area.
But if you want to phrase it slightly differently, focusing more on the duration of your work history, what structure, tense, and prepositions should we use, like we saw in the scenario?
The scenario used the present perfect tense. I have worked in sales for 10 years. Now, this is important linguistically because the present perfect, have worked, is used when an action started in the past 10 years ago and is still true or relevant right now.
And the preposition for specifies the duration of that time.
Right. So this phrasing highlights longevity and commitment up to the present day.
And this contrasts sharply with using the simple past tense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If you were to say, I worked in sales for 10 years, that simple past tense implies that the sales job is a completed action. You are no longer in sales.
Oh, I see.
But if you are still working in that field, you must use the present perfect, have worked, to tie that long duration directly to your current expertise. This small grammatical choice makes a massive difference in how the listener perceives your current status.
And what if the speaker has recently switched careers and needs a simple way to share background about a previous job?
In that case, you might say, before this role, I worked in accounting for 3 years. You use the simple past tense, worked, because that job is finished, but you communicate that the experience is relevant to your current skills.
So the application here is about tailoring the details and choosing the correct tense. Do you want to emphasize a broad idea of experience, or do you want to use the powerful present perfect tense to show that your experience is continuous and currently active?
Exactly. Hashtag H has a H family. Personal touch. Component H gives you the opportunity to add a brief personal touch by mentioning your family. This is usually kept simple, but it is a powerful way to make a connection beyond your professional life.
And for a straightforward, easy introduction of family members, the simplest phrasing is best.
You just state who you have. I have a brother and a sister. It's simple, it's easy, and it gives the listener a quick, relatable insight into your life outside of work.
If you want to talk about the size of your immediate family, without going into too much detail about individual relationships, you can use a collective phrase.
Right. You can say, we are a family of 5. This shares information about the size of your household without requiring excessive personal detail about names or ages. It works well in social settings.
The scenario specifically used the phrasing, I am one of 4 siblings. Why is it useful to clarify your position in the family?
This phrasing clearly defines your position, saying, I am one of 4 siblings is precise. Or if you are an only child, the simple, straightforward way to state that is, I am an only child.
And this information often serves as a subtle cultural cue. It can suggest whether you are used to sharing resources, or fighting for attention, or operating independently.
It's a quick conversational hook.
That's the real power here, connection. Mentioning family, even briefly, transitions the conversation from being purely transactional, job, title, location, to being genuinely human.
Exactly. It shows you are a person with a life outside of your credentials. You can keep it extremely brief. But using this component often signals to the other person, I'm open to a real conversation. Hashtag I, hobbies. Sharing interests.
And we have arrived at the 9th and final component, hobbies. This is arguably the most fun part of an introduction because it allows your personality to shine and gives the listener the easiest entry point for a follow-up conversation.
Right.
Our scenario ended with, and I am a big fan of hiking.
We want to convey enthusiasm here, and the language you choose communicates the level of your interest, from a simple liking to a true passion.
So to express just a simple liking for an activity, you use straightforward language.
You can say, I really like playing tennis. This is quick and easy. It shows enjoyment, suggesting you do it occasionally for relaxation.
But if you want to convey passion, that you deeply enjoy the activity and seek it out, you can use stronger language, like the phrase we used in the scenario.
Using I'm a big fan of hiking shows strong enjoyment. The phrase big fan suggests it's more than a casual interest. It is something you actively seek out and dedicate time to.
Other options would be,
I am passionate about, or I absolutely love.
and what if you are truly dedicated or serious about the hobby? Maybe you're training or competing. You can signal that commitment with specific adjectives.
You might say, I am a keen runner. The word keen gives the sense that you are serious or truly dedicated to that hobby. It implies a level of skill or regular participation.
Or, I'm an avid reader.
Exactly.
The key application here is managing the depth. Hobbies are conversational bridges. So if you are at a professional event, maybe mention a hobby that might align with the company's values or that signals positive traits, like running or reading.
And critically, choose a hobby that you can talk about for at least 1 minute.
Good point.
Do not say you are a keen runner if you only run once a month. This component is designed to get the conversation past the introduction stage, so you have to be able to follow up authentically.
That wraps up our detailed analysis. By dissecting the scenario and breaking down all 9 components, you now have the building blocks and the linguistic rationale necessary to construct your own perfect self-introduction. Okay, we've provided the detailed blueprint, but just knowing the phrases is not enough. To truly master the self-introduction, you must practice until it becomes second nature.
Right.
So let's reinforce the steps necessary to build that confidence.
Practice is the bridge between knowing the phrases and using them confidently in high-pressure, real-life situations. If you skip practice, you risk reverting to that freezing up state we talked about at the very beginning. We have 2 simple but non-negotiable steps for you to start right now.
Step 1. Write down your own self-introduction. Use the 9 components we have just discussed: your greeting, name, age if you share it, location, qualifications, professional information, experience, family, and hobbies. Write it out fully, using the precise structures and tenses we analyzed. Don't just use bullet points, write it out as a full paragraph.
The act of physically writing it down solidifies the structure and the vocabulary in your long-term memory. And once you have written it, edit it for clarity and flow. Try reading it aloud to yourself to check the rhythm.
Then, once it's written and edited, you move to step 2. Practice in front of a mirror, or even better, record yourself.
Recording yourself is perhaps the most powerful tool for self-improvement. When you play it back, you hear yourself as the listener hears you. You can spot any awkward pauses, any mumbled words, or areas where your pronunciation might need a little extra attention.
And pay attention to your pacing. Are you speaking slowly and clearly enough for someone to absorb the information?
Yes, and practicing in front of a mirror helps you check your nonverbal communication. Are you smiling? Are your shoulders relaxed? Are you maintaining eye contact?
Your body language has to signal confidence and approachability, just as we discussed when we were analyzing the greeting.
The goal here is efficiency. We want the delivery of these 9 components to require 0 cognitive load. If the introduction is automatic, you can dedicate all of your mental focus to the person you are meeting and the conversation they are initiating.
Which allows you to listen effectively and respond thoughtfully.
That is the difference between a speaker who is struggling to remember their own script and a speaker who is fully present in the interaction, ready to connect.
So remember this. The more you practice these structured components, the more confident you will become in introducing yourself in any situation.
Whether it's social, professional, or casual, do not wait for a high-stakes moment to discover that your introduction is unprepared.
Practice today.
Your self-introduction is your personal spotlight moment. It is the only moment in the conversation where you have complete control over the information you share and the impression you make.
So take these tools, apply the structured approach, practice slowly and clearly, and make that moment count. #outro, host speaker MC. That brings us to the end of this incredibly detailed, deep dive into mastering the self-introduction. Thank you so much for guiding us through those 9 critical components and for explaining not just what to say, but why the language choices have such a deep impact.
It was my pleasure. I hope all our listeners now feel they have the roadmap, the GPS, to tackle their next introduction with 0 anxiety.
Absolutely. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to English Uncut. Keep working on those self-introductions, refining them and practicing them until they become second nature.
And here's a final provocative thought for you to take away. If your self-introduction is perfect, it should always end with a statement, a hobby, a location, an experience that forces the listener to ask a specific follow-up question.
So think of your introduction not as an ending point,
but as the perfect beginning of the conversation you want to have.
Your progress does not end here. To continue advancing your English skills and keep the learning momentum going, check out the next video on your screen. Or explore the additional videos we have thoughtfully selected for you to continue your journey.
Until next time, stay strong and keep learning.
And start practicing that perfect introduction today. We will see you soon.